Welcome to the webinar. Your presenter is W. Vernon Murray. He's been a certified public accountant since 1990. He is also a business analyst and has been helping businesses analyze and improve their business operations and boost their bottom line profits. He and his team are specialists in working with medical practices and behavioral health care agencies. W. Vernon Murray has been a business owner for the last 30+ years, so he has first-hand experience of what it takes to analyze business operations and ensure that a business achieves maximum financial health. In addition, he has 11+ years experience as a C-level executive in both a medical clinic and a behavioral health care clinic. This includes experience as a CFO of a 9,000-patient primary health care clinic, where he handled the revenue cycle management, financial reporting, and all the accounting and business management responsibilities. He was also the CEO and CFO of a behavioral health care agency, handling operational efficiency, financial management, and strategic planning. Along with his hands-on business experience, Murray has completed graduate and postgraduate degrees in business management, strategic development and implementation, and several specialized programs in medical practice financial operations. So here is W. Vernon Murray as he presents this powerful and practical webinar.
Now, wouldn't it be nice to have a business operations at your medical clinical practice be totally problem-free? Just perfect. No problems. I mean, a practice where cash flow is flowing in the right direction, a practice where workflows actually flow without bottlenecks, a practice where all credentialing is done and current and all your providers are in network and participating with every insurer. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have business operations at your practice where HR's doing everything that HR needs to do, and accounts payable is paying all the bills, and accounts receivable are collecting all the billings, where coding is perfect? That would be nice. Now, I've been a CFO at a clinic for several years, and I know I would love to have a practice where the business operations are just perfect. But you and I know that doesn't really exist. Not even in a perfect world would you find a perfect medical practice. Truth is, I'll tell you a secret. In a perfect world, there is no such thing as a perfect world. A perfect world does not exist even in a perfect world. So my fantasies and wishes and longing for this perfect business operation in a medical practice is just that, fantasy. So what is the next best thing? I can't have a perfect business operation where all my cash flows in the right direction, where all my credentialing is done, where my EHR system is working perfectly. If I can't have a perfect business operation in a medical practice, what is the next best thing? The absolute next best thing. And that's what we'll talk about in this webinar. In fact, let me give you the agenda for our webinar today. We're going to look at the absolute next best thing to a 100% problem-free, perfect medical practice operation. Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this webinar today. But here's the agenda. Here's what we want to take away from this presentation today. What we will look at is 3F strategy. That is the next best thing. But exactly what is the 3F strategy? We'll take a look at that. Then after we discuss the 3F strategy as the next best thing, we will look at a 3F strategy on steroids, a better next best thing. Then we will look at the first critical step of a 3F strategy, Targeting. That's the first step of a 3F strategy on steroids. And then we'll talk about how you fit in as a medical practice administrator, CEO, executive, or medical practice owner. We'll take a look at where do you come in. And of course, at the very end, I have two very special gifts for you. One is probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I know that sounds like a hyperbole, but I'll give you an example of how it was actually worth at least $100,000 to one of our existing clients. Okay, so that's our agenda. Let's get rolling. Now, we did a survey of surveys. So we looked at 20 different surveys that listed the top problems that medical practices or clinics face. These are problems that have negative impact on revenue and profits. Business type problems, right? And here's what we came up with. The 5 top problems are declining cash flow, insufficient revenue cycle data, credentialing issues. I know that's a big one for many practices. EHR issues, where you don't have access to data. There's EHR issues in data migration, or generally in EHR interoperability, where your EHR system just doesn't talk with the other systems in the office. And then, of course, increased healthcare regulations are really becoming a drag on many practices and clinics. So those are the top 5 problems. But the real problem is those items are not really the real problem. The real problem is not having a 3F strategy. And I'm sure that of the 5 problems that we just listed, of these 5 problems, that as a medical clinic executive or medical clinic owner, that you have probably encountered one or more of these problems, but that is not the real problem. The real problem is not having a 3F strategy. So what is the 3F strategy? Because remember now, the 3F strategy is the next best thing to having a perfect 100% problem-free business operation in your medical practice. So what is the 3F strategy? Well, it's the 3 F's, quite literally. It's figure it out fast, fix it fast, and formulate new P&Ps fast, that policies and procedures. Fast, fast, fast. Figure it out, fix it, and formulate. Let's look at these in depth. Figure out what? You've got to be able to figure out the factors that are contributing to the problem. These factors could be factors in your operations. It could be people, certain departments, different functions. Anything that contributes to the problem needs to be figured out fast. That's the first F in the 3F strategy. The second F is to fix those underlying contributing factors fast. Now, when I say fix the factors, what I'm referring to is eliminate or mitigate. There's some factors that you could get rid of, completely eliminate. There's some that you can mitigate, where you have to lessen the impact of that factor on your business. Now, it's like a mountain, right? You face a mountain. You could either go over it, around it, or through it. And I remember an ancient teacher who once said that if you have enough faith, you could actually move it. So the same thing applies with contributing factors. You have to figure out a way to fix it fast. If you can't fix it, go around it, go over it, or simply move it. And then after you figure it out and fixed it, You want to formulate policies and procedures to mitigate or eliminate the contributing factors. In other words, you want to put some stopgaps in place so that these factors don't have negative impact on your operations going forward. The formulate is the future part of the 3F strategy, right? So again, the 3F strategy is the next best thing to having a perfect operation. And the 3F strategy is to figure out the factors that contribute to your problem, fix the underlying contributing factors, and formulate policies and procedures that mitigate or eliminate those contributing factors. So there you go. You have the 3F strategy. But there's more to it than that. See, let me share with you why a 3F strategy is really the only solution. It's the only realistic option, because the other option is to have a perfect 100% problem-free practice. That's never gonna happen. Problems will exist, but as long as problems don't persist, you could have a successful practice. And here's why it's important to have a 3F strategy. Because a 3F strategy ensures that your problems don't persist. Because the longer you take to implement a 3F strategy, it means the longer the problems or the contributing factors to the problem exist or persist. And as those underlying factors persist, the longer they persist, the more you lose cash flow, revenue, and profits, the more you lose employee morale and productivity, and the more you develop workflow operational bad habits. It is critical to have a 3F strategy, because without a 3F strategy, you run the risk of losing cash flow, revenue, and profits, of declining employee morale and productivity, and you run the risk of developing organizational bad habits in your workflow. Let's look at each one of these individually for a brief moment. So the longer a problem persists, the more money you lose. So a few years ago, August 2016 to be exact, we proposed a 3F strategy to a clinic. We'll call it Clinic XYZ. And this is a real story. Names have been what does it say? The names have been disguised to protect the innocent. Well, anyway, had a meeting with this client, sat down, took a look at their situation, their contributing factors, and we proposed to them a fee of $17,200. Actually, it was a little bit higher than that. We negotiated down to $17,200. They declined our offer, our proposal. They said it was too high. A few months later, 10 months later, they call us back, get a phone call saying, "Hey, could we have a meeting? You know, we sort of want to take a look at that plan that you had back in August." So we met with the client, and what we found was amazing, just mind-blowing. So it had been 10 months since we first met with them in August of 2016. Here we are meeting with them in May 2017. So it's been 10 months. The problem that existed back then was a problem with credentialing and billing. That problem persisted for 10 months. And during those 10 months, that clinic lost $514,157 in billings. That's over $500,000. Even after netting the cost of our services, they still would have lost right at $500,000. Problem was not credentialing. The problem was that they allowed the problem to persist. And the longer a problem persists, the more money you lose. It's the bottom line. But not only do you lose money, you also lose employee morale. Because employees become very frustrated because they get a sense that management is unable or unwilling to figure out, fix, and formulate the problem to keep it from recurring. And see, employees look to management to create solutions. And when solutions are not being created, employees become frustrated because their work becomes more difficult. They become less productive. Employee morale suffers. When employee morale suffers, employee productivity suffers. And when productivity declines, there goes cash flow. So a 3F strategy can keep you from losing money. It can keep your employee morale and productivity at high rather than low levels. But there's a third factor why a 3F strategy is the only effective solution. A 3F strategy keeps you from developing operational bad practices. See, businesses come up with what are called workarounds. You've heard that, right? You've probably used a couple yourself. A workaround is a temporary fix that only addresses the symptom of the problems and not the actual problem. See, when you don't take the time to apply or implement a 3F strategy, which figures out, fixes, and formulates, when you don't do that, you end up having to do workarounds or band-aids, temporary fixes. The longer the problem persists without the implementation of a 3F strategy, these workarounds or these temporary fixes become more and more embedded into your organizational workflow, to the point where people begin to think that this is the way it should be done, not realizing that this is just a temporary workaround. Bad practices are hard to get rid of, and they create trickle-down inefficiencies in other parts of the organization. You have to have a 3F strategy that figures out fast, fixes fast, and formulates fast to make sure that problems don't persist. Okay? So you with me so far? So let's recap. Everybody wants a perfect, problem-free business operation in the medical practice. Never gonna happen. Quit dreaming. But the next best thing is achievable. The next best thing is a 3F strategy. A strategy that figures out the contributing factors fast, that fixes, that eliminates or mitigates those contributing factors fast, and that formulates new policies and procedures fast to ensure that the problem does not persist. But I've got something that is better than the next best thing. Better than the next best thing. Call it the 3F strategy on steroids. So what in the world could be better than the next best thing? Let's take a look. 3F strategy on steroids. Now, we're not promoting, just to be politically correct, we are not promoting steroid use. Bad thing, bad. We're not promoting that. But we have developed a proprietary 3F strategy that is comprehensive, powerful, innovative, action-focused, and affordable. Affordable doesn't mean cheap. We'll talk about that. Remember that example? Clinic that couldn't afford $17,000 but lost $500,000. Think of affordable in those terms. So what is this strategy? We call it the TASER strategy. It's the top of class in medical practice analysis. TASER, T-A-S-E-R. T is for targeted, A is analysis, S-E go together, solution engineering, and R is rebound. Now, we're not going to go into all of these right now, but we're going to spend some time looking at the T, the targeted, because that is the number one step in the 3F strategy on steroids. That's the TASER strategy, which is the 3F strategy on steroids. Now, let's talk about targeted. You can't figure out, fix, or formulate anything if you don't have a target. What the TASER strategy does, it uses extreme targeting to make sure that our analysis is focused on the problem and not just the symptoms of the problem. And that's critical. That's the difference between symptoms and problems. And as medical people, you probably have a really good sense of the difference between a symptom and a problem. All right? So the T in TASER is for targeted. The A, of course, is for analysis. In our TASER strategy, we look at both financial and non-financial analysis. Now, did you know that most financial analysis gives results, usually measured as KPIs, key performance indicators, but most financial analysis only uncovers symptoms that are caused or driven by non-financial factors. So you find that cash flow is a KPI, which is generally caused by maybe the organizational culture, or it may be caused by organizational intercommunication. Several other non-financial factors come into play that affect the financial KPIs. The great thing about our TASER strategy is that we look at both. We look at both financial and non-financial analysis. SE, all right, earlier I said these go together. So our analysis is not just about accumulating analytical data. I mean, you could do that with any type of software program that does pivot tables, analysis, etc., etc. Accumulating data is not analysis, but accumulating data that's used to engineer solutions is where the true analysis works, and we call that solution engineering, and that's part of our TASER strategy. And of course, the R means that the ultimate objective of our analysis is so that your organization, your business, your medical practice could rebound or go beyond its current level of performance in that specific area. So if we're looking at targeting, say, cash flow, our analysis has to be able to leave you with the tools and strategies necessary to have better cash flow after our analysis is done, rebounding, to bounce back after experiencing organizational setback. And setback doesn't mean you're on the brink of bankruptcy. A setback could be as simple as not achieving your optimal revenues or not achieving a particular goal that impacts your bottom line. Provider productivity, for example, or cost management. Not reaching those goals in those areas is a financial setback. And what the TASER strategy is committed to doing is to make sure that you have the tools and resources and solutions so that you rebound from that setback. So the question I get a lot is, well, we could do this. We've got a CFO, we've got an accountant, we've got a finance department, we've got RCM software that does our analysis for us. Why can't we just do this in-house? Well, let me ask you a question. Would you ever recommend that a patient do their own diagnosis, prescribe their own medication, and develop their own treatment plan? Probably not. That would probably be disastrous. And what we found is that by engaging a third party, such as our organization, to help with your TASER strategy, it gives you 2 or 3 significant benefits. One is we have done the TASER strategy for hundreds of medical practices, clinics, and other businesses. And so we have seen almost every problem that there is in business operations. And not only have we seen it, but we have helped develop and devise solutions. We have engineered solutions based on our analysis to help these business organizations rebound from whatever situation they had going on. So we bring that experience and expertise with us. We have a team of people that are specialists in finance, strategic planning, revenue cycle management, accounting, HR. I mean, we've got combined hundreds of years experience. And so it would be more effective to engage our team to conduct this TASER strategy for you. We bring a third eye. We see things differently. Sometimes you could not see the forest for the trees. And because business owners, medical directors, administrators, executives in the clinic, because you're embedded in the situation, sometimes it's hard to take a outside the box look at the contributing factors to problem and implementing a TASER strategy. So for those reasons, it's very effective to collaborate with a team such as our team to help you implement your TASER strategy. But there's a role for you to play. I mean, we will be working together as team members throughout this TASER strategy, but particularly so in the first step, which is targeting. So you have an assignment, critical assignment, and it's called choosing the target. What does that mean? First of all, you can't analyze what you don't target, and you can't target what you don't identify. It is so important. This is if you get nothing else from this webinar, you've got to get this. The reasons problem persists. And remember, we talked about it is not the presence of a problem that is the problem. It is the persistence of a problem that is the real problem. And the reason that problems persist is not because people don't know what to do. It's never a lack of knowledge that creates persistent dysfunction or poor operations. It's never because people don't know what to do. It is because people don't correctly identify the problem, or what I call they misidentify the problem. And so the targeting is critical, but this is where you come in, because you really are the only one that could drive this targeting process. We will work with you very closely, but we want to make sure that together we work on targeting the problem correctly. Two challenges, or the two keys to correctly identify and target. One is the cost-benefit test, and the second is outcome versus symptom. We'll look at that second one first, because it sort of lays the groundwork for the first one. So outcome versus symptom. One of the common mistakes, predominant reasons why people misidentify the problem is because they identify a symptom as a problem. Symptoms are not problems. They are only indicators of a problem. We like to define a problem as an intended outcome not achieved. That's a problem. And so we will explore or explain what exactly we're talking about. Here's an example. People always love to cite cash flow as a problem, right? Man, my cash flow is messed up. Cash flow is slow. But poor cash flow is not a problem. Poor cash flow is a symptom. More often than not, poor cash flow is a symptom. Maybe in some other webinar or online course, we'll talk about the ladder of symptoms, right? Because truth is, at some point, a problem is a symptom and a symptom is a problem. There's a pendulum along which an issue is a symptom and then becomes a problem, which could then revert back to being a symptom. But that's not for this particular webinar. Generally speaking, people misidentify symptoms as problems. Cash flow is a perfect example. Cash flow, generally speaking, is not a problem. I know it's a problem when you feel like you can't pay your bills and you can't pay your staff. It seems very problematic then. But that is not the problem. Cash flow, poor cash flow, is a symptom of things like credentialing problems, collection problems, poor cost controls, even intangible things like organizational culture could affect cash flow. And organizational culture, let me illustrate that one, because that's a very intangible concept, but it's applicable in nonprofit organizations or service-oriented, service-focused organizations such as medical practices. A lot of times the culture, the organizational culture that drives a service organization, such as a clinic, is that we want to serve our patients. We want to serve our clients. We're here to serve them. We want to make sure that their health is taken care of. We're here to meet their needs. That is our mission. But there is frequently a mismatch between that culture of mission and the mandate of margins, right? Every business, whether you're service oriented, whether you are a nonprofit, you have your mission, but you have an underlying mandate to achieve certain margins that ensure you stay in business in order to meet your margins. But often there's an imbalance or a mismatch in organizational culture where everything is done to serve the patient or serve the customer. That often creates the symptom of poor cash flow. When we do the TASER analysis, the TASER strategies, we include an organizational culture analysis to identify whether or not you have what we call the organizational culture mismatch. Okay, so problem versus symptom. It is very important that if you're going to implement the first step in the TASER strategy, that you do an effective job in identifying the problem. Now remember, targeting is only the first step in the TASER strategy. And the TASER strategy is the 3F strategy on steroids. And you remember that the 3F strategy is the next best thing to having a perfect medical practice. So why is problem versus symptom such a big deal? Well, it's a life versus death type of big deal, right? Because imagine this, you spend all this time trying to fix a symptom, focused on the symptom, while the problem keeps getting worse and worse, to the point that the problem could be killing your business. The problem could become terminal while you have been focused on the symptom. One day, your business just goes flatline. It seems like it happened overnight, but it happened over months, maybe years, while you were distracted by a symptom and allowed a problem to persist. This is why it's so important. This targeting process is so important, that we work together as your analysts and your consultants. We work together with you to make sure that the targeting is done effectively and efficiently. We would love to work with you on this targeting process. Like I said earlier, we bring years of experience. Myself, 25 plus years is as a business analyst, an auditor, and a business advisor. 15 plus years as a CEO, CFO, revenue cycle director in medical or healthcare, both in primary care and behavioral healthcare. Been a CPA for 25 plus years, and I'm currently completing my PhD in policy planning and analysis. Hope to be done here shortly, within the next year or so. I am the author of several books on business management and strategy, and towards the end of the webinar, I'll give you a link to some of the books that I've written that you might find very, very beneficial in your business management. So I, along with my team, would love to help you work on your targeting process. I think it's almost mandatory that we work together, because if we don't start effectively targeting, then the rest of the TASER strategy, remember TASER is targeting, analysis, solution engineering, and rebounding. Everything after that first step kind of collapses if we don't do the targeting correctly. So here's how we could work together. We'd love to talk with you. You'll see a scheduler at the end of this webinar in a few seconds, in a few minutes. Pick a date, pick a time, and schedule that free conference call, free virtual conference now. Remember we talked about 2 free gifts? That's the first of the free gift. Now I did tell you that it was probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least 100,000. Let me tell you why. On these free virtual conference calls, we begin the targeting process. And one of the things the targeting process does, it helps you as the medical practice administrator or executive. It helps you clarify the issues that are facing your practice. And we had a particular client that during the call, the light bulbs came on. As we were clarifying the process and clarifying the problem, the light bulbs just kind of clicked. And he said, I know what was going on here. I know how to fix this. And so there's no obligation, to us to engage us on the phone call. I mean, after the phone call, you could say, thank you, nice talking to you, and kind of see you later. And so essentially that's what he did. He says, thanks for this call, man. It was really very helpful. And that was it. So maybe 8, 9 months later, get an email from him stating that we've been able to essentially engineer a solution just off of that phone call, that free phone call. We were able to engineer a solution that saved us over $100,000 in costs in our operation. It actually was in personnel costs that they were able to save $100,000 per year in personnel cost, simply based on that free phone call. Now, he felt somewhat guilty, and he shouldn't have. There's no need to feel guilty. So he says, look, I know the engagement that if we hired your company, it's going to cost us, anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000. So I'd like to send you a check because the phone call saved us $100,000, and I feel really kind of bad that we kind of got that clarity from the phone call and you didn't get an engagement out of it. I said, no need to. I mean, it is a free phone call. He said, no, never mind. Let me send you something. He didn't send us the entire fee, but what he sent was more than half of it, put it that way. Just as a way of saying thank you for helping us target the problem effectively. Okay, so you'll see that we're going to give you the opportunity to schedule your call. Be sure to do so. And there's no obligation. We'll call you, we'll start the targeting process, and we'll go from there. So the step number 1 is targeting. And there are 2 keys to targeting effectively. And we talked about the first one, which was making sure we identify the difference between symptom and problem. So what's the second critical key? We kind of talked about it earlier. It's the cost versus benefit. So it makes no sense to engage us for a $10,000 analysis if your problem is only a $5,000 problem, right? I mean, some problems are not worth fixing. I mean, would you invest in a $5,000 solution to a $500 problem? Now, I know some people are very anal. I've seen people who really get a fit if a picture is crooked on a wall. You ever seen people like that? It's got to be just right. And they would interrupt a meeting, get up from their desk, walk over to the wall, stand there for minutes, fidgeting with the picture till it's just right, just straight. Some problems are simply not worth fixing. Now, on the other hand, why would you not spend $10,000 to solve a $100,000 problem? So as you make a decision on targeting, we have to understand that the value, you have to put a dollar estimate on your problem, because simply from best business practices, you have to understand that every problem is not worth fixing. And there's some problems that are just nuisances, and you're just going to have to live with them. I mean, don't want to sound too, demagogic here, but truth of the matter is there's some things that just cost too much money to fix. So again, we'd love to help you with your targeting. My team and I will personally call you to start the process. That's the one commitment that I made. I will personally call you to start the targeting process. Simply because of the sheer number of medical clinics that we work with, I may not be managing your TASER strategy process from start to finish. I will be involved at every step, but I may not be the manager, because we have experienced experts on our team that will help with that process. But that first phone call, because it's so critical, I personally make all those first targeting process calls. And so there is a schedule at the bottom. Be sure to schedule date and time when you'd like us to talk so we can get this process started. So there it is. We've come to the end. I want to make sure you get your free gift. Your first free gift is that free 1-hour consultation. It could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not a hyperbole. It has actually happened. That's the first gift. Be sure to claim it. Your second gift is my latest ebook, 7 Strategies to Rebound in Business Fast. Businesses go through setbacks. It's the way of life. Things happen, but it's what you do when you have setbacks in business that separates the successful businesses from the unsuccessful businesses. So grab a copy of the book. It talks about some of my personal experiences in business. I've failed at several businesses in life, probably more than I've succeeded at. But every business failure has been a success because it showed me what not to do, which made my successes even more successful. So grab a copy of that free ebook, and thank you for attending this webinar. And I look to be able to speak with you as we do the targeting process here sometime in the near future.